Okay, hey Jen, how you doing today?
Good, Greg. How are you?
Good. Well, all right, all right. Bit tired,
right.
but
Yeah, yeah,
all right,
yeah. I
all
get
right.
that.
Have you got that too?
Yes, for sure. Busy week.
Oh, okay. Because there's I don't know. That's what I wanted to talk to you about in the second part or whatever. You know, I couldn't sleep the other night, and I had this like 2 pages of everything that just happened. So,
Oh wow.
okay, I guess you call that like a little teaser, right?
Yeah. Up and coming.
Teaser for the next part. But you know,
Yes.
anyway, I thought we would start out this with maybe introducing ourselves a little bit. You know, just
Yeah, sure.
because I'm hoping these will stand the test of time or whatever, right? So somebody will look back on it 25 years from now. Hey, those guys, that's neat.
That'd be good. Yeah.
So hopefully this will end up turning out to playing that you'll be able to hear that, because I don't know how far we've gone back to like talking about, hey, how did you get into it? And well, I got into it this way, and and I think we just kind of joined at one part, and it's kind of like, well, I was with the team or whatever, but I wanted to maybe try and see if there was a little bit more into it, Like for my part, started back in '96, when back in March when my father died, and I kind of knew it because I was the one that told him, I'm like, you need to take him to the hospital. He doesn't look good, And they're like, oh, okay, well. So then he ended up dying in March, and then in May, my brother died, who lived there too, which was kind of, okay, that was weird, but he was kind of, I don't know. He drank a lot, so one of those type things. And my mom died later on, but what kind of got me into the paranormal stuff was, well, let me play it. It's an answering machine tape. I got a lot of these around the time my dad died. So hopefully you will be able to hear this. It's like a little bit of a minute, but this was what I got on my answering machine. Can you kind of hear that a little bit?
Is it like a lot of popping, kind of?
Yeah. Okay, so you kind of get the gist.
Whoa, yeah. It sounds like bubble wrap, but I don't know. That's really weird.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't know what to think of that, and it just kept coming over and over. And there was a couple times I need to find the tape again. I have it somewhere. It's just so many tapes at that particular time, but there's a couple times where I'd even answer. It's like, it would be like that. And I'm just like, hello? And it just still keep popping and going on. And I'm like, what?
Whoa, wow.
So I'm like, okay. And especially during this time, I'd be watching like the Twilight Zone and, different things and I'm like, oh my God, they had an episode where the telephone lines went into this grave, and it was like, it made somewhat of a similar noise like that. And I'm like, huh? And of course, back during that time, I was kind of in John Edwards, was a big thing on TV. So it was like watching him too, and it's like, people always hear about phone calls from the dead, and I'm like, what? I'm like, God, I wonder if that's anything to do with it or whatnot. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. Then one of the last times, after I kind of figured this out, and it was still going on, there was one of the last times that it happened, I'd like looked at the time and looked at the day, and it was one of those that it was a time that my dad would have called, because he always called us on a Sunday night at 10:30, because you know how Dad is, he's trying to get the cheaper rates, and that's when cheaper rates start. So it's either calling me or my sister. So I usually get the first call at 10:30, and if I know he doesn't call at 10:30, it'll be 11. And he's just, is always right on time. Yeah, there we go. Right on clockwork. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, holy cow, So I'm like, I wonder if there's something more into this, So that's kind of how I got into it, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And I'd tell people different stories, and we'd try to form something, back in, what was that, 99, so I've had all my little gadget thingies, and I'm like, I don't want to do this alone.
Yeah.
But then nothing really came of it, and then, I still had my little thingies or whatever till JCPT came along in 2008, so
yeah.
that's kind of how that started. That's pretty bad, I had to wait, about 10 years to actually use the stuff. This is great. But
Yeah.
But it was curious, I can't say, I've always had like one of those moments that, like everybody else has, I was a kid and I saw, a shadow in the closet or something, and that's when I knew the something. Not me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that you mentioned that, because apparently, so my grandpa apparently, he was really close with me, and it was my mom's dad, and I guess he ended up dying when I was 2, and apparently he was this guy that like could not put me down. Anytime I was over, he had to be holding me and all that, and so he died when I was 2, and not too long after that I was spending the night at my grandma's, and apparently, and I don't remember this, and I really wish I could remember this, but apparently my grandpa came to me and was in the corner of my grandma's bedroom, and I screamed because I was like 2.5 or something, and I'm like, Grandma, there's the man with the white hair in the corner, and my grandma's like, Charlie, you leave her alone, and my grandma knew it was him, and I'm like, oh my God, that my grandpa came back to say hi. So I was 2.5 then, but I didn't really do anything about it like until college. And my best friend and roommate at the time, Jill, I was really into the Shadowlands.net, and I was on that website constantly. And I remember just being like, you know what, I just need to go out. Let's just go out and do it. So I'm like, hey, Jill, I'm like, you want to go ghost hunting? And she's like, what? Sure, okay. So we go to this Methodist cemetery in Dubuque, and we're just going, and then it's like, okay, cool, it's kind of fun, whatever. And then we'd like, hey, let's go again. So then we go the next day, and it was like, I don't even know what time. It was really late, though. It was like maybe midnight, and all of a sudden we're walking through this, and this cemetery is creepy. There's like those trees that like go like kind of, they're like really scraggly and weird. I don't know. It was creepy at night. So we're walking through the cemetery, and all of a sudden we hear like a board, like someone stepped on a board, and I'm like, whoa, and Julie's like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but we should probably go, because we were, at that time, we're like, all right, we need to go. So we leave, and then we come back the next day, and sure enough, there's a grave with a piece of plywood over it. So we're like, oh, well, maybe that's, someone was saying hi, it's their grave, I don't know. But there was nobody there, like, there was nobody, it was just us two. But, so that was crazy. And then we decided to start, and I don't even remember the name of the group now. That was back in 2000, and I don't remember the name of it now. But there's been a couple groups. I was in charge of our Dubuque group that we had, and so I did that for a long time, and then it kind of branched out, and then of course you know how it is. People kind of, start doing other stuff, and then not really getting into it anymore, and so then I moved to Cedar Rapids, and then I'm like, you know what, I need to look again for a group, and then I got on Craigslist, and then Greg had an ad, and I applied, and answered that, and yeah, so here I am.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you initiated the first cemetery thing when you said, "Hey, Jill, let's just go."
Mm-hmm.
What possessed you at that time to? What a word, right? What, what made you want to go out? Have you just always been curious, or is it just?
Always, and I don't know why necessarily. It's just kind of always been ingrained in me. It's always been a passion of mine ever since, and maybe it started with my grandpa's visit. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
But it's always been something. Ever since I was little, I've always been like, well, I used to have these really, really weird dreams too. There was a recurring one, and I was really young at the time too, maybe grade school, where I would dream that I would wake up and there was this old crotchety lady in a rocking chair at the end of my bed, and she'd be like looking, and she'd like look at me, and then I'd like kind of hide, like kind of under, but she'd like, keep staring at me, and then I'm like, oh my god, I got this feeling like she was going to attack me, so then I get up and run, and then I'd hide behind the door of our like furnace room, and she would run at me, and then she'd find me, and I'd see her face, and it was like this skull thing, and then I'd like wake up, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like it was a recurring dream, and it was so creepy.
Oh, okay. So it was a dream, not actual like you were just sitting there looking at this, saying, "Oh crap, what?"
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it was a dream, yeah. Thankfully, but yeah, it happened a lot, and so yeah, I was really young, and it really scared me. But I'm like, gosh, it's just all these little things over the course of my youth and life and everything. I'm just like, there's something out there. Like there's so much that we don't understand. And so it'd be great to just understand it, and there's just always kind of been a thing.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. But it's just like is there something that is common like in all of us that make us pursue this type thing, or?
Yeah.
I wish I knew. I'd like, that's strange as it is anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. Very good.
Yeah.
So I guess we have the Sally House coming up pretty soon, huh?
We do. Yes, I looked into that, and I'm a little nervous. I'm super excited for it, but I'm a little nervous about it. But yeah, Sally House seems amazing.
Yeah. Because what makes you a little?
Well,
the only scratching of guys happens, isn't it? Is there something more? Did I miss the second paragraph or what? Or?
No, usually it's just the guys that get scratched. So I'm definitely going to be making sure that I'm close to you. I don't, obviously want anything to happen to you. So So I was kind of doing a little bit of research on it, and obviously they're talking about the demon or whatever, but it's not maybe necessarily Sally. So that kind of worries me a little bit. I did want to tell you I've been using the sea salt.
Okay, cool.
So,
cool.
To kind of help rid with the negativity, so kind of help with that. So I'm hoping that helps going into this, because kind of a protection kind of thing,
Sure.
Because I don't know, that really makes me nervous with the demon thing. So I hope that, everything's good there.
Because they had thought that was in the basement, right? Or is that just like throughout, or?
Well, so it's supposed to be throughout the entire house, but apparently there was a witch that lived there not like super long ago that performed like satanic rituals and animal sacrifices and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they think maybe she opened something up. However, in the research that I've found, apparently that is all fabricated and none of that is true. I guess there was a witch that lived there, but apparently she's an old lady now, and she's completely distraught over everything that's been said about her, because she's a gentle, nice, like white witch, and she would never do anything like that. And there's supposed to be like this like mark on the floor where they covered up the pentagram with paint, where she supposedly had her altar or whatever. Well, so many people that have visited there said that's not, that for one thing, it doesn't even look like a pentagram. It's just a kind of a blob. And they think that it's like this black stuff that would cover the cement floors for like waterproofing. and so they think that that's what that is. And so, like, that, but still, like, there's something there. They think that maybe what haunts the place, there's definitely activity there. Like, there's no doubt. Like, there's definitely something there. But they think that maybe all the visitors there brought stuff, and they think that that's maybe what it is. But there's something definitely there that's, that can be potentially dangerous, scratches, all that stuff. So, yeah, it kind of makes me a little nervous, but I'm super excited to go.
Yeah, that's weird because you never really, you kind of wonder like who to believe too, you know, and because you see some stuff on TV and some people had written stuff, and so yeah, I'd never even heard anything about the witch thing, so that was kind of interesting. But
yeah, it's weird.
So that ought to be interesting. So I guess the question is, what would be next after that? Because we usually do an Edinburgh in there sometime, but the way they're always seem to be booked up and even into whatever time.
Yeah.
You know, it would have to be like a Sunday night if it were up to you. Or even, I think there was even one day where there was a Farrar that was an opening.
Oh, Farrar.
So I was kind of thinking about that as kind of, I think that was maybe in September-ish.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be down with Farrar for sure.
Just to be a little different than give Edinburgh a little time to...
Little break from us.
Yeah, exactly. But even though I'd really like to talk to those guys down in the basement again like we ended last time, because that seems to be dwelling in my mind for some reason. Yeah. And that's kind of into the next story too, is there's a little bit of that into that too, which is kind of strange unto itself, but we can talk more about that. But I just remember you like the Farrar thing, and and there was, I don't want to skip around. Okay. I'll get to that in a little bit, because I think I talked a little bit about Farrar a little bit later on. Or
sure.
But any scoop on new equipment or anything you're looking into, or you kind of good for now? I just thought we would kind of keep the dialogue going.
No, I'm unfortunately no. I don't have anything this time. That's a change from normal, because usually I'm like, Greg, I got something new. But this time, no, unfortunately I don't. They're going to be my same stuff.
But is there anything that piques your curiosity? It's
always.
Like, always?
Always. There's always something I'm like, ooh, I wish I could have that or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like I already have the paranormal puck. I still want an Ovilus 3, but like there's no way, because they're like $1,000 or whatever now.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you have yours, and as long as you have yours, that's good enough for me. So. Yeah.
See, I always keep debating on, because I use the FLIR thing. It was kind of set up like yours, and it seemed good, but is it good enough? And so it's always like that debate on which one is better,
Yeah.
So I'm like, the original, but how can I get something to record on there that looks decent enough? It's like the phone thing kind of worked and okay, but then the other one is like almost too big, it's distorted. Maybe I should play with the new one a little bit more, just to actually record something off and then seeing it on there, because it seems like it's almost like too big and too blobby or something, But
yeah.
But it looks great on your phone. But I'm like wondering.
Huh. Yeah. Well, so since I got my new phone, I haven't been able to use my FLIR one, and so I'm like, oh man. So I'm gonna have to get like either another phone, or there's one that I was looking at that would be a dream. It's a FLIR, but it's like a camera. It's like a full-fledged like handheld thing. They're like $12,000 or something, but they're awesome, and they have like a big screen, and it's like a full-on like video camera that you can like record with it and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my god, that would be so awesome. But yeah, they're so expensive.
Yeah, and what we found out, the funny thing was, it was interesting to see from that mine worked with my FLIR worked with your phone.
Oh, good.
Do you remember that? Because I'm like, hey,
No.
what? You don't? You were in Velisca, right? Were you there? Were
Yeah.
you the
Yeah.
one that was there with me then? Or is that something? No, yeah.
Yeah, one of
But I
those.
remember, I can't remember if I looked on yours and it said like something else like Flare 2 or whatever. And I'm like, why don't you just try mine? You know, it's got the same type of clip or whatever. And it worked on your phone. So you were thinking about, well, geez, maybe I should just buy like the one that you got because it works with my phone, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I could. I mean, I got the other one. It's either that or get another phone, which shouldn't be too hard to get. Just like another like kind of cheaper phone that it would work with. I don't know.
I know, such a debate.
I know, right?
Yeah, for sure. Have you gone over anything yet at all, or?
I have not had time
Yes,
to.
yeah.
I was thinking about it like the next day, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, and yeah, and not yet, but I want to.
My biggest goal was getting everything off of the equipment onto a hard drive.
There's that.
You
That's
know?
definitely a process too.
I think I just finished some of that up today even. I'm like, what if I got that stuff off that camera? It is now, so like
Yeah.
they keep looking on there. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like all the stuff. What the heck?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot.
It's
There's
funny
so
how
much.
that happens, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, let's just call it last week. Yeah, last week. That I went on a little bit of a trip.
Oh,
I had some
where'd you
time
go?
off, so it wasn't last weekend, but yeah, it was somewhere in there. I ended up going to the Willard Library.
Oh, you did?
I did go to the Willard Library in Evansville, Indiana,
That's awesome. How did it go?
before going to Nashville for a couple days here or there.
Wow.
That was amazing. Amazing.
Awesome.
It was definitely weird, and reading more about the place at all, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I took my audio recorder in there, and there was a few things that were said that I don't think should have been recorded, but oops, as long as it's in good enough hands that I'm not going to do something
no.
about. But you know, I just wanted to go in and just take a look around. I was amazed that after reading a little bit more about it, that he wanted it set up as like a city park with the library in the middle of it. So for some reason the state couldn't do anything about it. You know, he tried to build up such guidelines because he didn't want anything to ever happen to this place.
Oh,
And
wow.
I kind of got that feeling too. You know, it's just kind of weird that the town is like all right, but definitely this place was like, it was amazing because, you know, it had that park-like feel to it because it had park benches, and I'm like out front, and you know, they had like a little food truck that was off to the side, and it's just like, that's weird that you see like a library just sitting like right in the middle of a park or something, but it's like, okay, that's cool.
Wow.
So I thought I'd just go in and just take a quick look around or whatever. You know, I'm going to take my audio just in case, you know, EVPs are the best thing that we ever get, you know, so.
Yeah, true.
So I only knew it was like maybe a couple, 3 hours that it would be closing, so it's just like, okay. And I'm like waiting for somebody else to come in because I'm like, where do you go in at? Do you go in that door, or is there something on the side, or you know what I mean? So I ended up seeing somebody come in, and it was, I ended up like, once I had gotten in, you know, I went up to the top floor, and I'm like, okay, I might as well start at the top and work my way down. And there was absolutely nobody in there.
Oh, really?
There was, I think, I was trying to think, I don't think there was anybody upstairs. There was like one person downstairs and another two in the basement floor. So there were like maybe 4 people all together. And I'm like, ooh,
Wow.
this is probably not good, is it, for a library to like have like nobody? But okay, it's during the week, whatever. I don't know. Strange.
Yeah. Downtime.
Right. So I end up talking to the guy upstairs for a while, you know, and he's going on about all the history stuff, because that was, I guess that's the archive stuff up there, you know, and
Oh.
we started talking about the Civil War, and yeah, the river out here was a big, you know, they could move a lot of stuff up and down the river, and the Yankees and the Confederates were always fighting about this and that, and so it was kind of interesting to talking to him. Like, okay, well, I better get going. So then I went down to next floor, which is kind of a main floor or whatever, and that's where another lady was, and the director of the library too. And I'm like, I remember you because I'd seen some videos, and I'm like, he looks kind of familiar. Really, really, totally friendly guy, and just talk and talk and talk and answer everything. And it's like, what brings you here? And I said, yeah, I come to see your ghost. You got one? And he pulls out this sheet that's got, like pages of stuff on it. Well, you came to the right place, and and he's like, we put up some new cameras, and ever since you've been here, do you know you've been on 6 different cameras? That people are watching you right now? And I'm like, oh, really? So he was answering all types of questions, and he's like, well, let's go downstairs. I want to show you where, they found her, and I want to talk to, Ed and Lorraine Warren were here at one time. And I'm like, what, really?
Oh, wow.
So I didn't really tell him too much what transpired to, like, why I have to be here. But, I told him I was kind of a paranormal guy or whatever. But when we went down to the kids' room or whatever, where a lot of this stuff happened, and took me to where Ed and Lorraine were and things like that. And the lady that works down there, which is kind of funny because it's in the kids' room. The kids were down there, kids' books and stuff. And there were 2 lady librarians down there, and one of them pulls out a K2 meter. It's like, hey, you want to take this around with you? The kids really love it when we let them play with it, and they run around the library to see if they can catch, all the blurps of lights and stuff. And like,
awesome.
Like, interesting, very interesting. I'm like,
Started me out.
Yeah, because it said some guy from Florida came up to visit or whatever, and he was like asking if they had one. He's like, oh no, we don't. So he mailed them one up so that they could have one there, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Wow.
So that was kind of neat. So he's like, yeah, we have people coming all over the country, and even some from Scotland and here and there, and I'm like, wow.
Wow.
All for one person that saw a ghost or whatever, right?
Wow, yeah. That's cool.
So that's interesting. And they showed me a new part that they had built on and stuff. So that was kind of it was interesting. It felt really good there.
Good.
And, the way I kind of looked at it now was it's kind of like, I want to call it like a safe house.
Okay.
If that kind of makes sense. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of paranormal people will go there, whatever, but then they'll feel like really good and safe, which is kind of a weird term or whatever, but I don't know. I can't describe it more than that, but it's just, it's just so beautiful, the architecture, and just looking at all the different things there, it's just like, wow, it was crazy.
That's awesome.
And especially the people too. It's just like, wow, you feel like I knew them. And there was one of the ladies down there, and I was looking at her, and I actually said something. I'm like, you look very familiar. She's like, I get that a lot. And I'm like, that's just I can't quite put my finger on that one.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting, the whole thing, and once you think about everything. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Okay. So then from there I went down to Nashville for a couple days, and I wanted to just go over a few things and start, getting the case logs together or whatever, so I can start writing a book and stuff. So I think I told you about that kind of before. And there was a time, and I went over the Farrar one, started jotting notes about that, and the Peoria State Hospital.
Oh, okay.
And I want to think it was Peoria, but the more I think about it now, because I was doing Farrar later, that's why I made a note down on there. that there were 2 different times you said you got touched there. Do you remember that at all?
Kind of, yeah. I think one of them was on the 2nd floor, if I remember correctly, near a classroom. I mean, that's obviously pretty specific. It's an old school, so yeah. But I'm trying to remember now how to put it. It was like at the end of the hall, if I'm remembering correctly. It was at the end of the hall, and it was like the last classroom on the left, if I remember right.
Okay, because there was one, I just got into the part to listening to some of the audio to where we were going into a classroom, but there were Brian that was with us at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He says, he's like, I don't like this room, and that's why I just kind of stood here in the doorway because I didn't want to go in. And I think you said you had that feeling too. Do you think it might have been that room or right around there?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, hallway, in the hallway. One time was in the hallway, I just remembered that.
Okay.
It was like right by there, yeah.
Interesting.
It was like my leg, yeah.
Because I don't know if you never said anything, but it was just like, it was one of these times we were coming back to the, I don't want to call it safe room, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
What was it? The
Home
office.
base.
Yeah. But it was really the office, I think, or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever. And then you're like, I'm sure you didn't say it like that, but you're like, yep, I got touched again. I'm like listening to this, and I'm like, I didn't even say anything, or I don't know if anybody said anything, but the way you had said it, I don't know if you had said anything before or not, but it was just kind of like weird that, yeah, I got touched.
Yeah, it happened, whatever.
And I'm like, usually that's kind of a big thing for us when there's actually some type of contact whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I wanted to see, like, what would happen, if it would happen again, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I have this superstition where, like, if I say something, then, like, it won't happen again. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep quiet for now and see if it happens, and then if it does, then cool. But if not, then okay.
But it was 2 different times, right? Do you think they were... I think they were in different areas. And what still gets me is you kept hearing those noises in the gym that you kept thought it was their TV or whatever. And I'm like, hey, how can that be their TV or whatever? And
yeah, that was awesome. That was basically, it sounded like when you're in a huge, like, auditorium, say, and there's, like, hundreds of people in there, and you can hear, like, everybody talking at once.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like, and it was very cool, and it wouldn't, like, I kept hearing it, and it was very faint, but I could hear it. It was very cool.
Huh. Because it seems like I kind of remember something like that, but I was just... No, it wasn't raining. It just seems like, oh, well, that's probably just something outside, or it's raining, or whatever. But I don't think it was at that particular point.
No, it wasn't.
Do you remember the time we went down to Peoria?
Yeah, the one with the Halloween room.
Yes,
like yeah, I remember that.
Because was that the day where it was like sleeting out? Not sleeting out, but it was kind of slushy. Because I couldn't remember if it was that or the Ashmore ones, but I want to think it was when I was driving. That just seemed like it was just kind of slushy.
Maybe. I don't remember the weather during that particular time. I don't remember. I don't think it was slushy out. Maybe it was. I don't know.
Weird, because I just remember one of those times like, oh, this is just great. Another thing to try and slow us down or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those, I looked up the weather report and said, oh yeah, light rain and 40 degrees. And I'm like, God, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't either really.
Because I think Ashmore was kind of like that, because I remember you drove down there.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I remember Peoria, because the wind was so bad there. It was just like, oh my God, this is terrible. Especially when in the basement we hear that rattling or something with the outside door. It's like, oh great, this is gonna.
Yeah.
And
I do remember that.
You kept make a note. The wind's blowing.
Yeah. Note to self for future.
And then it was funny, like the last hour that we were there, last half an hour, you were like, hey, you know what? It's like, what's that? The wind finally died. And it's like, well, yeah, of course.
We're getting ready to leave, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So that was kind of strange.
Yeah.
But I wanted to find out more. Not to be jumping all over the place, but yeah, I am.
No, you're good.
The Villisca, the last Villisca we were there. I want to find out more about that 15 minutes when we were apart.
Yes.
Because I didn't really experience anything as far as like, a drop on the floor or a K2 hit or anything. And I'm like, and I thought I was going to be able to find out the answers I've been looking for, but it seems like you had a lot more activity than I did, and it seems like I've kind of remembered it a little bit when you were talking about it, but
Yeah.
I want to hear the whole thing.
Yeah. So it didn't. So when I left, went back in the barn, and that kitty was there. So I was petting him, and all of a sudden it was kind of, I don't know, it was probably about halfway through, and nothing really happened until, and I had the door shut, like the door wasn't open, I had the door shut. And I remember it was kind of windy that night, but it wasn't that bad. And all of a sudden I heard stuff like in the attic up there, like upstairs, and I'm like, because it was really quiet, and all of a sudden I could hear stuff, and I don't know if it was footsteps or if something like fell, or if it was like an animal, but I don't think it was because I only heard it that one time. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, I like instantly froze, like, oh my gosh. And the kitty was there, so I kept petting him. And then all of a sudden I heard like, bang, like on the door, like the office door, like, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I thought, okay, well, it is kind of windy, but I'm like, all right, you know what? I got the feeling like it didn't want me in there, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna step outside now. And so I'm like, it's close enough. I'm just gonna be like, hey, I'm back in now. Like, I almost felt safer in the house than I did out in the barn. And so I'm like, all right, so I'm just gonna go back in and see how you're doing. And so when I told you about that, and then we went back out, I tried to like recreate it, and I tried to like kind of, but I couldn't. Like the door was pretty solid. Like there wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room there, and I'm like that would have had. And considering the door was, I had the door closed, so it couldn't have been like a draft to like come through. That would have had to have been an extremely strong draft because I tried the door and like I really had to like really pull on it to even get it remotely that sound again. So I'm like, okay, that was kind of, they didn't really either, they're trying to get my attention, which is absolutely possible, or, they didn't want me in there, I don't know, but I got the feeling like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and get out then and go see what Greg's up to and see if he got any of the answers he was looking for, so.
Well, I knew because kind of about halfway through or maybe just about that time, I kept thinking, I haven't heard from you yet. And I thought at least, maybe 10 minutes in, you'd say, hey, is everything okay? What, is it cool? Or, then it's just like there's nothing. And I'm like, then I started thinking, well, maybe these don't work. Maybe they're too far away or something's not letting them communicate, because that's always like a common thing that seemed to happen or whatever, and then it's just like, okay, what's...
Well, I didn't want to interrupt. In case you were having some good activity, I didn't want to disrupt that, and just kind of let the full 15 minutes go.
Right. Because I don't even know if I had like a watch ever to... Oh, it's been 15 minutes, okay. But...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, well, that was... Yeah, because I know I just kept trying to talk and nothing happened, and talk some more. And you always hear this, it's kind of like, I thought, okay, this is going to be good,
Mm-hmm.
When you have two people together, it's kind of like, you can take on anything, but, you kind of separate the herd a little bit. You get that kind of, the...
Yeah.
You know, should I
Yeah.
be doing this? Shouldn't I? Is everything okay? You know, raise the fear level a little bit, see if they spark something. And it's just like it, you know, I didn't move from one spot, and it's like one of those. I'm like, I'm not going to look behind me either, but you know,
Yeah,
but I want to make
yeah.
sure I see everything in front of me because I don't. We're too adept at horror movies, you know, to where we look around for 1 minute, look back, you know, there's something right in your face, and it's like, does that really happen or not? I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
It works on
I
a
don't know.
haunting, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
is
yeah,
that
true.
real, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So I think that's going to be kind of interesting going through that stuff because that's why I didn't really. I felt like I should have probably ran a lot more stuff and audio and video and whatever, but it just didn't. It just seemed like, you know, everybody, you know, was on vacation. You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Other than the fact that I just absolutely did not want to go upstairs at all. Like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like that last time, but I just didn't. I'm like, I'm not going up there unless I absolutely have to, and so, but, and, you know, there isn't a whole lot of power outlets in the place, so I'm like, well, I can only run so much before my batteries just, like, keep dying.
Yeah.
So there's that, too. But maybe I should have set something up. Maybe next time we go, I'll set something up upstairs in the barn, just like a camera up there, and see if I can catch anything up there.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Did you finally went upstairs later on, all right? Like maybe right before we left?
Yeah, because I think I kind of poked my head up there just to kind of be like, all right, you know, what could it have been? And there's still like that
Oh, the
VCR
barn, yeah.
there. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about in the house. Okay.
That's what I was thinking about. Oh, but you did at the barn?
Yeah, just kind of peeked. I mean, it didn't go all the way up. Just kind of peeked my head up, like
Yeah.
a meerkat, you know, just like.
I could see you doing that, you know, just
Yeah.
because you could walk up so much and just kind of look at the floor and see if anything, you know, see if anything
Yeah.
fell, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, eh. But yeah, I think I only went upstairs once, and that was to help retrieve that camera of yours, or put that thing on the bed, the kid's bed. I think that's the only
Yeah.
time I was upstairs.
Oh wow, and that was like
Early.
before it got dark, yeah-ish or
Yeah.
something, yeah. That
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. And,
Yeah.
and how come everything happens to you? Why? Next time
Oh, I wish.
next time you go in the house, I'll stay in the barn.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
I'm like, don't tell her, but I'm eating the rest of the pizza, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Any closing comments? Any thoughts here on segment number 1?
Well, not hugely, no. I just looking forward to Sally House, and you know, to all of you guys that are watching, thank you very much for watching. You know, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
So.
Da-da-da-da. Right.
Yeah.
All right. This closes out segment number 1, even though. Yeah. Stay tuned, right?
Yeah, stay tuned.
For part
Bye, guys.
2. Yeah.
Yeah.